In this video, we're going to take a look at our CMU Wall Assembly that's in our new Bid Pro Masonry for PlanSwift plugin. So the first thing we'll do is go to our Estimating tab and go to our BP Masonry location folders and click and drag a location folder into our Estimating tab. And for this takeoff, we're going to select First Level Masonry. Okay, now we're going to go to our BP Masonry assemblies. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and launch our CMU Walls assembly. Okay, so as with all of the assemblies in our plugins, you basically just work your way through and set up your wall here with your selections and drop downs, and then just work your way across the tabs. So we'll name this takeoff CMU Walls by 9 foot 4 inches. So we've already got our wall height here set at 9 feet 4 inches. We can select our block type from our drop down list. As with all of the drop downs and all of the assemblies are connected to lists that we sort of refer to as an internal database of items that you can go to in your list tab and modify any way that you need to. We'll take a look at that here in a minute. So you can select your block width. You can turn the wall block on or off. So if you just need to use the assembly to capture some other materials here in the assembly, but you don't need wall block, you can turn that off. And then you can select a bid amount per solid block count here for your bid report on this wall. Set your waste percentage for your block, for your regular wall block and sand and mortar. And then your multiply feature is nice. So if you've got a floor plan that represents more than one level, or maybe it's a split plan where one side of the building is a mirror of the other side, then you can just set your multiply factor to whatever you need to set it to, and it'll multiply your takeoff measurement by that. So as we work our way through the tabs, you can select your mortar and sand and select your coverage amount for each one of those. You've got two different bond beam types that you can add to the wall, so you can select your bond beam block type, how many courses of this bond beam type do you need. You can also pick up your bond beam grout and set your waste percentage, your continuous rebar with waste as well, and then you can select whether or not you need lintel screen and how many layers or runs of that you need. So you got a second bond beam type you can set up in the wall. So if you got two different types of beams, maybe with two different steel callouts or something, you can take care of that there. The next two tabs are for your vertical reinforcing. So some plans, just like this one that we've got pulled in here, it seems that most plans actually show your vertical reinforcing, so you can pick that up with a point count, and it's a little bit more accurate to do it that way. If you're dealing with a plan that doesn't show the vertical reinforcing locations just like this one, and you just need to pick it up based on an on-center spacing, that's where you would use these two tabs to do that. If you were using a plan that did show where the vertical reinforcing locations were, here in the drop and corner bars folder, we've got an assembly that you can pick that up with a point count. So let's say that you needed pre-bent vertical reinforcing. You can select your rebar size, select your leg 1 and leg 2 measurements for the rebar, your on-center spacing, and your grout and your waste for both of those. And then if you had straight vertical reinforcing that you needed to pick up as well, you could do that here. Let's say that all you had was pre-bent, and as with any of the other items that you don't need in the assembly, if we don't need to pick up straight vertical reinforcing, we can just select NA for that, and it'll turn that item off in the assembly. So working our way across, we've got horizontal reinforcing. So if you need to pick up any of your ladder wire, you can select that here, from your list, and then select your on-center spacing. And then we have a deductions tab so that we can do a takeoff of our opening area and also input a deduction for our half block for openings. And then if you have any columns in the wall, like 45-degree columns or butterfly block columns that you need to pick up, you can deduct the square footage from those block from your regular wall block count as well. Okay, so all we're going to do is go through and do our segment takeoffs from outside corner to outside corner. So just like you would build the wall and lay the block is how you would do your takeoff. Okay, so for all of your 9-foot 4-inch high block wall of the same type, we've gone through and taken off several segments here. And we'll go to the estimating tab. We can see over here to the left, but we'll go to the estimating tab and just kind of take a look at what we've calculated here. So all of these material items in our bid line item has all been calculated from these segment takeoffs. So we've got our regular wall block with our mortar. We've got our bond beam material. We've got our horizontal material. So all of these materials are calculated based on our selections. So if you select either one of the bond beams, it's going to calculate how many of the open lintel block you need with all the rebar and grout, sand and mortar that goes along with it. So we've calculated for both bond beam types 107 blocks. So the assembly will automatically deduct those quantities from your regular wall block count. As well, it will also automatically calculate based on your wall height if you need a course of half-high block to reach your block height. So right now we're set at 9 foot 4 inches, which works out with 8-inch block, so we don't need any half-high. But if we were to open the assembly back up and change our wall height from 9 foot 4 inches to 9 foot 8 inches and click OK. Okay, so now you can see that the assembly is determined and calculated that based on our wall height, we do need a course of half-high block. So it figured 107 block with the sand and mortar for that. So it will also, if it does generate a quantity of half-high block, it will do the back out that's necessary out of your regular block as well. Another thing the assembly does based on each outside corner, each segment takeoff that you do, for each segment it determines for that segment, it checks to see if you need a 3/4 block in that wall segment so that you don't have to cut block if you can use a 12-inch or 3/4 block instead. So for each segment that the length works out that you can use a 3/4 block, it calculates a column of 3/4 block to go on that wall. So for each segment that needs 3/4 block, based on the wall height, it's calculating 12 block for each one of those wall segments. So it's going to tally up all of the 3/4 block that you need, and then it will also deduct all of those block quantities from your regular block count as well. And then lastly, with the wall assembly here, because we do have to do the takeoff from outside corner to outside corner, you do have overlap on each corner, and the assembly also accounts for deducting for your overlaps here, so you really get a true accurate count for your regular wall block. So we'll take a look at, let's go ahead and take a look at doing our takeoff real quick for our opening deduction. So we have an assembly here to do our deduct for openings. We're going to also put that in our first level masonry folder. So we'll click OK. And we can go through real quick and just do our area takeoff for our openings. This is what we're going to use to calculate our deduction that we're going to go back into our wall assembly and enter. For our half block, if you want to go ahead and be able to calculate half block for your openings, we've got an assembly here to do that with for your opening heights to pick up your half block. And you can select your block size, your block type, and then do your mortar and sand as well for your selection, your coverage amounts. This deduct amount tab, after we do the takeoff and we open the assembly back up, it's going to tell us how many square feet we need to go back in and deduct from our wall block. So all we have to go through is just do our go through and do our segment takeoff for our opening heights. So if we go back to our estimating tab, take a look at it. So we've got about 76 square feet for openings to deduct, and then if we go back into our half block and we look at our deduct amount, we got about 17 square feet to deduct for the half block. So 76, 17. So we'll go to our deductions tab, deduct 76 square feet for our opening, 17 for our half block. Okay, and now we've just deducted those quantities from our regular block count as well. We'll take a look at our list tab real quick. These are again what we call sort of an internal database that we create with these lists, and it allows you to go in and modify them however you need to. So all you have to do is find the list of what you need to modify, and then click in, and you can delete this and create your own, or do whatever you need to do with it. And then taking a look at the reports real quick, if we look at our materials by location report, you'll notice that these material items from that wall takeoff we just did are grouped under a location that is the name of our location folder that we placed the takeoff in. Our consolidated materials report is just going to take all of the material items for the entire project, consolidated all into one list. And then our bid detail report is just going to break your bid down by location as well. And you can see this is what we named our assembly, and it's just calculating the solid block count for that wall, and then multiplying times the amount per block that we input. When you set up a new project, you'll also be able to input a markup percentage for this particular project, and then you can also select a logo image to be displayed on your reports, and then it gives you your bid total.